Operation Homecoming began with 3 ships and 1,200 soldiers. Within 6 months, it grew to 50 ships and 30,000 fighters. Within a year, it became the largest human military operation since World War II. Captain Lee Hyun commanded the operation from the carrier Resilience. The ship was crammed with soldiers, most of them former slaves who had been liberated and immediately volunteered to free others. They knew the camps. They knew the guards' routines. They knew how to survive. Kim Dana had transformed from engineer to strategist. She analyzed camp layouts, identified weak points, and coordinated logistics for moving millions of refugees. She worked 18-hour days and never complained. Park Taemin led the ground forces. His tactics were simple: hit hard, move fast, never leave anyone behind. He had liberated 17 camps personally and earned a reputation among the Kryn as the ghost who breaks chains. The campaign was brutal. The Kryn fought to keep their labor force. Every camp was a battle. Every rescue cost lives. But humans kept coming, kept fighting, kept pushing deeper into Kryn territory. The Varathi provided minimal support, exactly as Dana had predicted. They gave ships, but not enough. They gave supplies, but not sufficient. They made it clear this was humanity's problem to solve. So humanity solved it themselves. The liberated camps did not just provide refugees. They provided soldiers, former slaves who wanted revenge, parents searching for separated children, children looking for lost parents. The motivation was universal and overwhelming. Hyun remembered the 4th camp they liberated. A mining facility on a frozen moon, where humans dug for rare minerals in sub-zero temperatures. When his team breached the facility, they found humans who had been enslaved for 8 years. 8 years of darkness and cold and endless labor. Those people did not cry when freed. They picked up weapons and asked where the next camp was. By month 9, they had freed over 600,000 people. But there were millions more scattered across dozens of worlds. The operation had become a war of liberation, and the Kryn were finally taking it seriously. The turning point came at Vareth Prime itself. The planet where this had all started. The Kryn had reinforced it heavily after Hyun's first raid, making it a fortress. They knew humans would return for the 4 million captives still imprisoned there. They were right. Hyun assembled the largest human fleet ever gathered. 83 ships carrying 47,000 soldiers. It was every available combat-ready human in the collective. They left defensive positions understaffed. They pulled units from active fronts. They risked everything on one massive assault. The Varathi Council objected. They called it strategically unsound. They threatened to withdraw all support. Taemin told them, "Then withdraw. We are going anyway." And they went. The battle for Vareth Prime lasted 11 days. The Kryn threw everything at them. Orbital platforms, ground forces, atmospheric fighters. They knew if Vareth Prime fell, their entire system of human slavery would collapse. Hyun's forces fought with desperation and fury. Dana engineered solutions to every obstacle. She hacked defense grids, crashed enemy communications, and created escape routes where none existed. Taemin led ground assault after ground assault, his forces suffering terrible casualties but never breaking. On the 7th day, Hyun landed on Vareth Prime's surface with the first wave. He fought through the largest camp personally, a facility holding 500,000 people. The guards fought hard, but they were defending labor camps, not military installations. They were not prepared for organized resistance. When the fence came down, something unexpected happened. The prisoners fought back. After years of slavery given the slightest opportunity, they rose up. They overwhelmed guards. They sabotaged equipment. They freed themselves while Hyun's forces provided cover. An older woman handed Hyun a metal pipe she had used to knock out a guard. "Thank you for coming back," she said. Like you promised, Hyun recognized her. She had been in the crowd during his first raid, the one who accused him of abandoning them. Now she fought alongside him. By day 11, Vareth Prime was secured. 4 million humans were free. The cost was devastating. 9,000 human soldiers died in the liberation. Hundreds of ships were damaged or destroyed. The Kryn garrison fought to the last soldier, but they won. In the aftermath, Hyun stood in what had been the central administration building. Dana found him there staring at the computers that had tracked humans like inventory. "We freed them," she said quietly. 4 million people, and lost 9,000 doing it, Hyun replied. His voice was hollow with exhaustion and grief. 9,000 soldiers who survived Earth's death, survived training, survived years of war, died to free people they never knew. They died so other humans could live. Is that not what we do? Hyun thought about that, about the medic who never retreated, about carrying wounded soldiers under fire, about the instinct that made humans protect each other even when it made no tactical sense. Yes, he said finally, that is exactly what we do. The liberation of Verith Prime changed everything. The Kryn realized they could not hold their labor camps against determined human assault. They began abandoning facilities, concentrating forces in fewer locations. This made those locations harder to crack but also created opportunities. Over the next 6 months, human forces liberated camp after camp. The operation became systematic. Scout, plan, strike, evacuate, repeat. Every success added more soldiers to the cause. Former slaves became liberators. The cycle perpetuated itself. The Vorathi Council, watching humanity accomplish the impossible, quietly increased their support. Not out of compassion but out of pragmatism. Humans had proven they would fight regardless of support. Better to channel that energy than lose it to desertion. By the operation's 18th month, over 3 million humans had been freed. The Kryn still held millions more, but their system was collapsing. Humans were learning their technology, their tactics, their language. Every camp had collaborators now, people on the inside passing information to liberation forces. Yun was promoted to major, then colonel, then general. He did not want the ranks, but someone had to coordinate the growing operation. Dana became his chief of staff. Taemin commanded all ground operations. Together, they planned the final phase, a massive multi-world assault to crack the remaining major facilities simultaneously. It was audacious and probably impossible. They did it anyway. The assault lasted 3 months. Human forces hit 17 worlds at once. The Kryn could not reinforce everywhere. They made stands at key locations but were overwhelmed by human determination and numbers. General Lee Hyun led the assault on Kryn Prime itself, the enemy homeworld. There were no human camps there, but there was a central database containing records of every human in captivity. Every location, every name, every family connection. Hyun's strike team penetrated the planetary defenses through a combination of Dana's electronic warfare and Taemin's ground assault. They fought to the central archive and downloaded everything before the Kryn could delete it. The data was priceless. With it, they could find every human still in captivity. No one would be lost. No one would be forgotten. As they evacuated with the data, Hyun received a transmission from the Kryn commander. You have doomed your species. You focus on rescue while your enemies grow stronger. The Vorathi will use you and discard you. Maybe, Hyun replied, but we will face that together. All of us. 3 years after Operation Homecoming began, it reached its conclusion. The last major camp was liberated. Scattered humans still existed in remote locations, and recovery operations would continue for years. But the system of mass enslavement was broken. 7.3 million humans freed. 23,000 soldiers killed in the operation. A price in blood that would haunt Hyun forever. But they were free. All of them. The ceremony was held on New Sol, a terraformed moon that humans had claimed as their new capital. It was not Earth, it never would be, but it was theirs. Hyun stood before the memorial wall. 7 kilometers of names. Every human who died on Earth. Every soldier who fell in the liberation. Every child who did not survive the camps. The wall was not high enough to hold all the names, so they scrolled on screens, an endless river of remembrance. Dana and Taemin stood beside him. They were all older now, harder, scarred by years of war, but alive. We did it, Dana said softly. We actually did it. Not alone, Taemin replied. He gestured to the crowd behind them. Thousands of humans, former soldiers and former slaves standing together. All of us did this. Hyun placed his hand on the memorial. The stone was warm from the artificial sun above. He thought about that day on the hospital roof in Seoul, watching the evacuation lottery. He thought about the promise he made on that transport ship 5 years ago. They saved one of us, he said quietly. We returned for them all. Above New Seoul, human ships patrolled. Not Vorathi ships. Human ships crewed by human soldiers protecting human civilians. They had become a power in their own right. Not the strongest faction in the galaxy. Not the most numerous, but unified in a way that transcended species. The Vorathi had learned a lesson. The Kryn had learned a lesson. Every species watching had learned it. You could take everything from humanity. Their world. Their freedom. Their hope. The stealth ship Ghost cut through Kryn space like a knife. It was a small vessel, designed for reconnaissance and quick strikes, not rescue operations. But it was all the Vorathi had given them. One ship, minimal weapons, a crew of 40 volunteers. Hyun stood in the cramped cockpit beside Dana, who piloted the ship with practiced ease. Behind them, Taemin coordinated with the rest of the team. Every person on this ship had volunteered knowing they might not return. Every person had someone they hoped to find. 3 hours to Varith Prime, Dana said quietly. Sensors show minimal orbital defenses. The Kryn do not expect anyone to come here. Why would they? Taemin muttered. It is an agricultural world. No strategic value except as a labor camp. Hyun studied the planet on the view screen. It looked peaceful from space, green and blue like Earth had been. But somewhere down there humans suffered. His hands clenched into fists. During the 6-week journey to Kryn territory, they had intercepted more transmissions. The intelligence was devastating. There were not thousands of humans in captivity. There were millions. Varith Prime alone held over 4 million people across 24 labor camps. 4 million, almost as many as the Vorathi had rescued. The Kryn had scattered humans across multiple worlds, using them for tasks they considered beneath their own species. Farming, mining, factory work. Humans bred fast and adapted quickly. They were perfect slaves. Some of the younger humans on Ghost had been children when Earth died. They barely remembered their homeworld. But they remembered families, parents, siblings left behind. Now they had a chance to find them. Ghost entered Varith Prime's atmosphere under cloak. Dana piloted them low over endless farms, following coordinates from intercepted data. Below them, vast fields stretched to the horizon, and working those fields were humans. Even from altitude, Hyun could see them. Hundreds of people moving through crops, supervised by Kryn overseers. They wore simple gray clothes and moved with the exhausted rhythm of people who had worked too long with too little rest. Target camp is 5 kilometers north, Dana reported. Landing site secured. They sat down in a forested area near the camp. Hyun's team moved quickly, establishing a perimeter and reconnaissance positions. Taemin took a small unit to scout the facility while Hyun and Dana analyzed their sensor data. The camp was large, housing approximately 5,000 humans. It was surrounded by a simple energy fence, more to mark boundaries than to actually contain anyone. Where would they run? This entire planet was a prison. When Taemin returned, his face was grim. Security is light. 10 Kryn guards for the whole facility. They do not expect trouble. But Hyun, you need to see this yourself. They moved through the forest to an observation point overlooking the camp. What Hyun saw made his stomach twist. The facilities were basic. Long barracks that looked like they were never meant for permanent habitation. A central processing area where humans lined up for food distribution. Medical stations that seemed understaffed and poorly supplied. And everywhere people. Tired, worn people who moved like they had forgotten what hope looked like. But what struck Hyun most was the children. There were so many children. Not just the ones who had been evacuated from Earth as babies, but new ones. Children born here, who had never seen the sky without a Kryn overseer watching. Children who knew nothing but this life. We cannot take them all, Dana whispered beside him. Not on one ship. We take as many as we can, Hyun replied. And we document everything. Every face, every name, every piece of evidence that proves they are here. They spent 2 days observing, planning, recording. Dana hacked into the camp's computer systems and downloaded everything. Personnel records, genetic databases, work assignments. The Kryn kept meticulous records of their human property. The data was horrifying. Each human had a designation number. They were tracked like inventory. Breeding assignments ensured genetic diversity. Children were separated from parents at age 5 for optimal conditioning. Severe punishment for any resistance. But the data also provided something precious. Names, locations, family connections. A roadmap to finding people across multiple camps. On the 3rd night, they executed the rescue. Dana remotely disabled the energy fence and most of the camp's communications. Taemin's team neutralized the guards with tranquilizer rounds, not wanting to alert other facilities with weapons fire. Then Hyun walked into the camp. He removed his helmet so they could see his face. The humans in the nearest barrack stared at him like he was a ghost. "My name is Captain Lee Hyun," he said in Korean, then English, then Mandarin. "I am human like you. I am here to take you home." The silence was absolute. Then someone started crying. Then everyone was crying, talking, shouting questions all at once. Hyun raised his hands for quiet. "We have limited space. We can take 800 people tonight. Families with young children first, then injured and sick. We will return for the others. I swear to you, we will return." A woman pushed through the crowd. She was thin, her hands rough from years of labor. "You left us. You escaped and left us to die." Hyun met her eyes. "We thought you were dead. We did not know. But we know now and we are here. Why should we trust you?" she demanded. "Why should we believe you will come back?" Taemin stepped forward. "Because we are human. We do not abandon our own. Not anymore." The loading process was organized chaos. Dana managed the ship's capacity calculations while Taemin coordinated the evacuation. Hyun moved through the crowd documenting everyone, promising those who could not come that they would return. He found an old man who refused to leave. "Take my grandchildren," the man said, pushing forward 2 young girls. "I am too old to matter." "Everyone matters," Hyun insisted, but the man shook his head. "I have lived my life. They have not. Come back for me if you can. If not, at least they will be free." It was the same calculation repeated hundreds of times. Families splitting up, strong adults insisting the young and weak go first. People making impossible choices with grace and courage that humbled Hyun. They loaded 847 people. Coast was packed beyond safe capacity, humans filling every available space. Children sat on parents' laps. People stood pressed together in cargo holds. But no one complained. As they lifted off, Hyun watched the camp below. 4,000 people remained, watching their escape. He had promised to return. He would keep that promise or die trying. The journey back to collective space took 3 weeks. The ship stank of too many bodies in too small a space. Food ran short. The water recyclers worked overtime. But no one complained. They were free. After years of slavery, they were finally free. Hyun spent the voyage talking to everyone he could, recording their stories, learning what had happened after the Vorathi evacuated Earth. The Kryn had arrived within hours of the Vorathi departure. They used mass transporters to grab millions of people from the surface before the sun consumed everything, not out of mercy but out of economics. Humans were valuable. They were adaptable, intelligent enough for complex tasks but physically weaker than Kryn, easy to control. The rescued humans had been scattered across multiple worlds, families deliberately separated to prevent organization and resistance. But humans adapted. They learned Kryn language. They figured out the systems. They survived. "We always hoped someone would come," an old woman told Hyun. "We told our children stories about the ones who escaped. We said they would remember us." Some people stopped believing, but I never did. When Ghost finally entered collective space, Hyun transmitted their documentation to every human unit simultaneously. 847 living witnesses, terabytes of data, genetic records proving these were humans from Earth, video evidence of the camps, names and locations of millions more still in captivity. The Vorathi Council could not deny it now. The evidence was overwhelming and public. 3 days after their return, Hyun was summoned before the council again. This time, human officers from across the fleet accompanied him. Hundreds of them, standing in solidarity. The primary counselor looked at them for a long moment. "You have proven your case. The captives exist. They are numerous. You demand action. We demand you honor the lives you claim to save," Hyun replied. "You told us we were refugees under your protection. Prove it, help us save our people." More silence. Then grudgingly, "We will authorize limited military resources for liberation operations. Human forces will lead these missions with collective support. But understand this, Captain. These operations will be dangerous. The Kryn will not surrender their labor force easily. Many will die." "We know," Hyun said. "We are willing to pay that price. Are you willing to provide the tools?" The counselor nodded slowly. "Operation Homecoming is authorized. Do not make us regret this decision." As they left the chamber, Taemin clapped Hyun on the shoulder. "We did it. They are actually going to help." Dana was more cautious. "They are giving us just enough to claim they tried. The real work will be ours." Then we do the real work, Hyun said. He looked at the rescued humans being processed at the station, families reuniting with soldiers who had escaped years ago, children meeting parents who had been fighting across the galaxy. One of us was saved, he said quietly, remembering his vow from 5 years ago. Now we return for them all. 5 years changed everything and nothing. Captain Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the warship Daybreak, watching stars slide past the viewport. He had survived 43 battles. He commanded a unit of 200 soldiers, human and alien both. His reputation as the medic who never retreats had spread through the fleet. People said he could pull soldiers back from death itself. He was 29 years old and felt ancient. Kim Dana was the chief engineer on Daybreak now. She had revolutionized the ship's systems, improving efficiency by 30%. The Varathi had stopped being surprised by human innovations. They expected it now. Humans saw problems differently, fixed things in ways that should not work but somehow did. Park Taemin commanded the 3rd Human Battalion, stationed 3 systems away. He had become a legend in his own right. His tactics were studied in Varathi military academies. He had won battles that should have been impossible. Humans had proven themselves. They were no longer expendable cannon fodder. They were valuable assets, but they were still not equal. They still followed Varathi orders. They still died in Varathi wars, and they still believed they were the last humans alive. Dana came to Hyun's quarters late one night, her face pale. She carried a datapad and her hands shook. "You need to see this," she said. Right now. Hyun took the pad. On the screen was an intercepted transmission, Kryn military code that Dana had cracked during routine intelligence gathering. The message was simple, a supply manifest for something called Varath Prime. But one line made Hyun's blood freeze. Additional livestock from the 3rd planet. Breeding program shows promising results. Specimens demonstrate unexpected resilience. 3rd planet. Earth was the 3rd planet from its sun. This could mean anything, Hyun said, but his voice was hollow. It could be old data. It could be a translation error. Dana shook her head. The timestamp is recent. 3 weeks ago. And there is more. She showed him other transmissions carefully pieced together from months of intercepted fragments, references to human labor units, reports on optimal breeding conditions, casualty statistics from work accidents involving bipedal specimens from the defunct Sol system. "They are alive," Dana whispered. "Some of them. Millions, maybe. The Kryn took them when the Varathi left." Hyun felt like he had been shot. For 5 years he had carried the weight of being a survivor, one of the lucky few who escaped. He had made peace with the fact that everyone else was dead, but they were not dead. They were slaves. "We need to tell command," he said. "The Varathi need to know." Dana grabbed his arm. "Do they? Hyun, think about it. The Varathi evacuated Earth 5 years ago. The Kryn operation happened at the same time. If there were millions of humans to rescue, the Varathi would have known. They have intelligence. They have sensors." The implication hit him like a physical blow. They knew. They knew and did nothing. Or worse, they wanted us to think we were the last. Motivated soldiers fight harder when they believe they have nothing to lose. If we knew our families might be alive somewhere, prisoners, we might demand rescue missions instead of fighting their war. Hyun sat down heavily. His mind raced through possibilities, implications, consequences. If this was true, if the Varathi had deliberately concealed the existence of enslaved humans, it changed everything. "We need proof," he said finally. "More than intercepted transmissions. We need to see it with our own eyes." They spent the next 2 months gathering evidence quietly. Dana pulled every scrap of Kryn intelligence she could access without raising suspicion. Hyun reached out to other human officers, testing their reactions, building a network of people he could trust. What they found was damning. The Kryn had indeed rescued humans from Earth, but not out of mercy. They saw humans as a resource, strong backs for labor, clever minds for problem-solving, breeding stock for expanding their workforce. The Kryn had scattered humans across multiple worlds, primarily agricultural planets, where they worked farms and processing facilities. Conditions were brutal but calculated. Hard enough to ensure obedience, but not so lethal that the valuable human stock died too quickly. And the Varathi had known. Intelligence reports proved it. They had chosen not to act, reasoning that human soldiers were more valuable as motivated warriors than as people demanding rescue operations. Hyun felt rage like he had never known. Not the hot fury of battle, but cold, calculating anger. The Varathi had saved them not out of compassion, but out of utility. They had left billions to die and millions more to slavery, all for strategic advantage. He called a meeting with every human officer he trusted. 37 people crowded into a cargo bay on daybreak, their faces grim as Hyun explained what they had found. "We have two choices," he said when he finished. "Stay silent and keep fighting their war, or expose the truth and demand action. If we expose it, we risk everything," said Park Minji, a shuttle pilot. "The Varathi could court-martial us, execute us. We have no real power here. But if we stay silent, we abandon our people," countered Lee Ji-won, an infantry commander. "How are we any better than the Varathi?" Taemin, who had traveled 3 days to attend this meeting, spoke quietly. "What would those people in Kryn camps want us to do? If they knew we were here, free, fighting aliens' wars while they suffer in chains, what would they ask of us?" The answer was obvious. They would beg for rescue. "We tell everyone," Hyun decided. "Every human in every unit across the entire collective. We leak the evidence to all of them simultaneously. The Varathi cannot silence all of us at once. It was mutiny. It was treason. It was necessary. They spent a week preparing. Dana created an encrypted package containing all the evidence. They identified human communication officers in every major fleet. They synchronized timing down to the second. When they triggered the release, the effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Across dozens of worlds, hundreds of ships, and thousands of units, humans received the same message. Your people live. They suffer. They wait for rescue. And command has known all along. The reaction was explosive. Human units refused orders. Some threatened to mutiny outright. Others demanded immediate action. The Varathi High Command was caught completely off guard. 3 days after the leak, Hyun was summoned to appear before the Varathi Council, the highest governing body of the collective. He expected to be executed. Instead, he found himself in a massive chamber facing 7 Varathi counselors. They did not look angry. They looked calculating. "Captain Lee Hyun," the primary counselor said, "you have caused significant disruption to our military operations." "You lied to us," Hyun replied, his voice steady. "You abandoned millions of humans to slavery. We made a strategic decision. Rescue operations would have been costly and complicated our war effort. They were people, our people, and we will not fight for you while our families rot in Kryn camps." The counselor was silent for a long moment. "You present us with an ultimatum. I present you with a fact. Humans will not die for the collective while other humans die in chains. Give us resources to rescue them or lose your most effective soldiers." More silence. The counselors conferred in their own language, which the translation nanites did not decode. Finally, the primary counselor spoke again. "We will authorize a reconnaissance mission to Vareth Prime. Limited resources, limited support. You will lead it. If you find substantial evidence of human captives, we will discuss further action. If you fail, you will face court-martial for insubordination." It was a trap. They expected him to fail or die trying, but it was also an opportunity. "I accept," Hyun said. As he left the chamber, he knew everything had changed. They were no longer simply trying to survive. They were no longer just soldiers in someone else's war. They were going to save their people. All of them. One of us was saved. Now we've returned for them all. A HFY science fiction story outline, third person. Part 1, The Harvest opening scene. The story begins on a dying Earth in the year 2147. Humanity faces extinction as the sun expands prematurely due to an ancient cosmic anomaly. Evacuation efforts have failed. There simply aren't enough ships or resources to save 8 billion people. The protagonist, Corporal Lee Hyun, is a 28-year-old combat medic stationed at Seoul's last remaining military outpost. He watches helplessly as the evacuation lottery results are announced. His name isn't on the list. Neither are those of his squad mates, his family, or the millions of refugees flooding the streets below. The alien arrival massive ships appear in Earth's atmosphere, not human vessels, but something else entirely. The Varathi Collective, a consortium of alien species, announces their presence. They offer salvation, but not for free. They need soldiers, laborers, engineers, humans to fight in their endless war against a rival faction known as the Kryn Empire. The terms are brutal. Only those who volunteer for military service will be evacuated. Families will be separated. Those who refuse will be left behind to burn. The choice Hyun volunteers immediately, as do millions of desperate humans. They're loaded into cargo holds like cattle, stripped of possessions and injected with translation nanites. As the ships lift off, Hyun watches through a viewport as Earth's surface begins to crack and glow. He's alive, but at what cost? The revelation during the journey, Hyun befriends Private Kim Dana, a former civil engineer, and Sergeant Park Taemin, a grizzled veteran. They realize the horrifying truth. The Varathi don't see them as allies or even refugees. Humans are classified as expendable combat assets, cannon fodder for battles the Varathi won't risk their own people in. Part 2. The Proving Grounds Training. Hell, the human conscripts are taken to Bastion 7, a militarized moon where the Varathi conduct their most brutal training programs. The conditions are intentionally lethal. The Varathi believe only the strongest survive, and humans are considered a weak species unlikely to produce many survivors. Human ingenuity. What the Varathi don't anticipate is human adaptability. Hyun uses his medical knowledge to keep injured trainees alive. Dana repurposes broken equipment into makeshift tools. Taemin organizes the scattered humans into cohesive units, drawing on guerrilla warfare tactics. Against all odds, the human survival rate exceeds expectations. The Varathi instructors are baffled and grudgingly impressed. First blood. The humans are deployed to Threshold Station, a contested space platform on the border of Kryn territory. Their mission: hold the station against overwhelming odds while Varathi elite units evacuate valuable resources. It's a suicide mission, but the humans execute it with ferocity that shocks both allies and enemies. Hyun saves dozens of wounded soldiers under fire. Dana disables Kryn siege engines with creative sabotage. Taemin leads a counterattack that buys crucial time. The station falls, but the human sacrifice allows the Varathi to escape. For the first time, the collective takes notice of these strange, stubborn creatures from a dying world. The spark as the survivors are retrieved. Hyun makes a vow. He whispers to Dana and Taemin, "They saved one ship of us. Someday we'll return for all the others, but Earth is gone. The others are dead, aren't they?" Part 3. The truth unveiled rising through the ranks 5 years pass. Hyun has become Captain Lee Hyun, leading an elite mixed-species unit. His reputation as the medic who never retreats spreads throughout the collective. Dana is now a chief engineer, revolutionizing Varathi ship designs. Taemin commands an entire human battalion. Humans have proven themselves indispensable. Their creativity, emotional resilience, and refusal to surrender make them valuable beyond the Varathi's initial expectations. But they're still considered second-class citizens, tools, not equals. The intercepted transmission. During a reconnaissance mission, Dana intercepts an encrypted Kryn transmission. When decrypted, it reveals something impossible: human life signs on a Kryn agri-world called Vareth Prime. The Varathi had told the humans that Earth was completely destroyed, that they were the sole survivors. But the Kryn transmission references the livestock from the third planet and optimal breeding conditions for the resilient specimens. The conspiracy Hyun's team investigates covertly. They discover the horrifying truth. When the Varathi evacuated Earth, they only took the volunteers. But the Kryn Empire, witnessing the evacuation, swooped in afterward and rescued millions of humans, not out of mercy, but to enslave them. Worse, the Varathi knew. They had intelligence about the Kryn operation but chose not to act. Human soldiers were too valuable as motivated warriors who believed they were the last of their kind. Rescue missions would complicate that narrative. The decision Hyun faces an impossible choice: expose the truth and potentially fracture human loyalty to the collective, or keep silent and continue the war. He chooses truth. He leaks the evidence to every human unit in the collective simultaneously. The reaction is instantaneous and explosive. Humans across dozens of worlds demand action. Some units refuse to fight. Others threaten mutiny. The Varathi Council is forced to respond. They grudgingly authorize a reconnaissance mission to Vareth Prime, expecting it to fail and prove the humans wrong. They assign Captain Lee Hyun to lead it. Part 4. Into enemy territory. The impossible mission. Hyun assembles a strike team. Dana, Taemin, and volunteers from every human unit. They're given a single stealth ship and minimal support. The Varathi expect them to die or discover the intelligence was false. The journey to Kryn space takes weeks. During that time, Hyun's team discovers more intercepted transmissions revealing the scale of Kryn's operation. There aren't thousands of humans in captivity. There are millions, spread across multiple worlds, used as agricultural laborers, factory workers, and test subjects. Verith Prime, the team, infiltrates the planet. What they find breaks them. Vast labor camps where humans toil under alien overseers, families separated, children born into slavery who've never seen Earth or known freedom. Conditions are brutal but calculated, harsh enough to ensure compliance but not so lethal that the valuable human stock dies too quickly. Hyun locates one camp overseer's database. The records are meticulous: genetic profiles, skill assessments, breeding assignments. Humans reduced to inventory, the rescue. The team can't save everyone, not yet. But they can save one camp. Dana rigs the facility's power systems to cascade fail. Taemin leads a lightning strike against the guards. Hyun evacuates 847 humans to their stealth ship, cramming them into every available space. As they escape, Kryn forces give chase. The overloaded ship barely makes it to collective space, but they make it. The evidence Hyun returns with 847 living witnesses and terabytes of data. The Varathi can no longer deny the truth. More importantly, humans throughout the collective now know their people live. Their families might still be out there. The war just became personal. Part 5. We've returned for them all. The uprising human units across the collective mobilize. They're done being expendable assets. They demand resources, ships, and authority to launch a full-scale liberation campaign. Some Varathi officials resist, arguing it's strategically unsound. But humans have become too valuable to lose. When human battalions threaten mass desertion, the Varathi Council capitulates. A joint task force is authorized, Operation Homecoming. The campaign what follows is a brutal, year-long campaign to liberate human prisoners from Kryn worlds. Hyun leads the charge, becoming a legend among both captive and free humans. Every liberated camp strengthens the human forces. Former slaves become soldiers, engineers, medics. The Kryn never anticipated this level of human coordination and ferocity. They viewed humans as livestock, a fatal miscalculation. When livestock learns to bite back with organized fury, slavers fall. The turning point. The campaign's climax comes at Verith Prime itself, the largest concentration of human captives. The battle is devastating. Thousands die on both sides. But Dana's engineering genius cracks the planet's defensive grid. Taemin's tactics outmaneuver the Kryn garrison, and Hyun's medics save lives on a scale that defies probability. Verith Prime falls. 4 million humans are liberated in a single day. The aftermath. The war continues, but everything has changed. Humans are no longer refugees or conscripts. They're a faction with their own voice, their own power. The Varathi and Kryn both learned a critical lesson. Humanity's greatest strength isn't physical prowess or technology. It's that humans never abandon their own. Final scene years later. Captain Lee Hyun stands before a memorial on the rebuilt human colony of New Seoul, constructed on a terraformed moon. The memorial bears the names of those lost on Earth and those who died in the liberation campaigns. He's older now, scarred, tired, but beside him stand Dana and Taemin, along with hundreds of thousands of humans, former soldiers, former slaves, all free. Hyun places a hand on the memorial and speaks softly. They saved one of us. We returned for them all, and will never stop returning. Above them, human ships patrol the stars, no longer as mercenaries or refugees, but as protectors of their own future. Humanity survived extinction. They endured slavery, and in the process they proved a truth that would echo across the galaxy. You can take everything from humanity except one thing: their refusal to leave anyone behind. The training facility looked like hell. That was the first thing Hyun thought when they arrived at Bastion 7. The moon had no atmosphere, just domes of thick glass and metal covering training grounds that stretched for kilometers. Inside those domes, the Varathi had built obstacle courses, firing ranges, and combat arenas designed to break anyone who entered. The humans were given basic armor and weapons. The armor was too large for most of them, designed for the taller Varathi frame. The weapons were heavy and awkward. Nobody explained how they worked. The Varathi simply expected them to figure it out. "Listen up," a Varathi instructor barked. His name was something unpronounceable, so the humans called him Scar because of the mark across his face. You have 1 week to prove you are not completely useless. Run the course. Survive the exercises. Learn to fight or die. We have plenty more of you. He was not exaggerating. There were over 50,000 humans in this facility alone, and the Varathi made it clear they expected most of them to fail. The first day killed 30 people. They died from falls, from malfunctioning equipment, from pushing their bodies beyond breaking. The Varathi did not care. They simply removed the bodies and continued training. Hyun found himself partnered with Dana and Taemin by luck. The three of them stuck together, helping each other through the brutal exercises. When Dana collapsed from exhaustion during a 50-kilometer run, Hyun and Taemin carried her. When Taemin broke his arm in a fall, Hyun set it with makeshift supplies and Dana engineered a brace from spare parts. They noticed something the Varathi did not expect. Humans adapted. The weapons were designed for Varathi hands, but humans modified their grips. The armor was too big, but humans adjusted the straps and added padding. The exercises were meant to be individual tests, but humans worked in teams. On the 5th day, Scar pulled Hyun aside. "You, medic, why do you waste time helping the weak ones? Let them fail. Only the strong matter." Hyun met the alien's eyes. "Among humans, we are only as strong as the weakest person we refuse to leave behind." Scar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Foolish, sentimental, you will learn." But it was the Varathi who learned. By the end of the first week, the human survival rate was 3 times higher than any other species they had trained. The humans simply refused to let each other die. After 3 months, they were deployed. The Varathi did not waste time with graduation ceremonies or celebrations. One day they were training, the next they were loaded onto warships and sent to the front lines. Their destination was Threshold Station, a massive platform orbiting a dead planet on the border of Kryn territory. The Kryn were the enemy, though nobody bothered to explain why. All Hyun knew was that the Kryn wanted the station, and the Varathi wanted to deny them. The human units were given a simple mission: hold the station's lower levels while Varathi forces evacuated valuable equipment from the upper levels. Expected casualties were listed as 90%. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it, but they had no choice. The Kryn attacked 6 hours after the humans took position. They came in waves, insect-like creatures with forearms and chitinous armor. They were fast and vicious, tearing through defensive positions with brutal efficiency. Hyun's unit was stationed in a choke point near the main reactor. The corridor was narrow, which helped, but the Kryn kept coming. They climbed on walls and ceilings, firing weapons that shot superheated plasma. The first human to die was a young man from Beijing. His name was Chen Wei. A plasma bolt took him in the chest before he could even fire his weapon. Hyun tried to reach him, but there was no time. More Kryn poured through the breach. Taemin organized the defense with cold efficiency. He positioned shooters at angles, created overlapping fields of fire, and rotated tired soldiers out before they collapsed. Dana rigged explosive traps from damaged equipment, slowing the Kryn advance. Hyun moved through the chaos, dragging wounded soldiers to safety, applying emergency aid, and getting them back in the fight. He discovered something about himself in those hours. He was terrified, but his hands never shook. His mind stayed clear. When people needed him, he became something more than himself. The battle lasted 14 hours. By the end, the corridor was filled with bodies. Kryn and human mixed together in death. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burnt flesh. Hyun's armor was covered in blood, most of it not his own, but they held. Against all odds, the humans held their position. When the evacuation order finally came, only 40% of the human force was still combat capable. But they had accomplished their mission. The Varathi evacuated with their equipment intact. The station was lost, but the collective's forces escaped. On the transport back, Hyun sat between Dana and Taemin. None of them spoke. What was there to say? They were alive, so many others were not. A Varathi officer approached them. This one was different from Scar, older and with more decorations on his armor. "You three, report to command when we reach the fleet." They expected punishment. Instead, they were given commendations. The Varathi High Command had reviewed the battle footage. They were impressed. Confused, but impressed. "Humans fight differently," the commander said. "Wasteful, emotional. You risk yourselves for wounded instead of advancing. You hold positions beyond reasonable expectation of survival. It should not work." But somehow it does. He looked at each of them in turn. You will be given command of mixed species units. Teach our soldiers your methods. Make them understand why you fight the way you do. After the meeting, the three of them found a quiet corner of the ship. Taman pulled out a small flask he had somehow kept hidden through everything. They passed it around, taking small sips of terrible alien alcohol. We survived, Dana said quietly. I did not think we would. We will survive more, Taman replied. We are human. We endure. Hyun thought about Chen Wei and all the others who died in that corridor. He thought about the billions left behind on Earth, burning when the sun finally consumed everything. He felt the weight of survival, the guilt of living when so many had not. They saved one ship of us, he said softly. Just one ship when they could have saved more. Someday I will make sure no human is left behind again. Dana looked at him strangely. Earth is gone, Hyun. There is no one left to save. But Hyun could not shake the feeling that somewhere, somehow, other humans had survived. He did not know why he felt this. Maybe it was just hope, irrational and foolish. Maybe it was denial, or maybe it was something deeper. Maybe it was the same instinct that made humans carry their wounded, hold impossible positions, and refuse to surrender even when death was certain. The instinct that said we do not leave our own behind. 5 years later, that instinct would change everything. But for now, all they could do was survive one more day, one more battle, one more impossible mission. They were human, and humans endured.